Today we are doing push-pull legs. It goes through 6 days in a week with Thursday off, and it can be pretty taxing. You're gonna be making progress based on the AMRAP set. So overall, really standard, fairly high frequency, 6-day-a-week program. Garrett Blevins here again, happy to bring another program review to you. Today we are doing push-pull legs or pull-push legs, whatever you prefer, by MetalicaDPA, a classic Reddit program. This has been out for a while, and really I would term it a power building program. Now it's not specific for powerlifting, but what power building means is that you're doing a strength-focused main barbell complex movement with a lot of accessory work tacked on to hit those smaller muscle groups and make sure you're well-rounded within your physique. So when you hear about power building, that's what it means. Within that term, there is tremendous variation of what there might be out there that is termed power building. But I'm excited to review it. This is the first in the series that we'll be doing with a power building program. Now, before I go any further, I want to say I'm going to go over the program. It's a very straightforward program, but I also want to try to give you an idea of the total amount of stress that's involved in this program so you can try and maybe compare it to other power building programs or even powerlifting programs that are out there. It can be difficult to compare these unique templates to one another. They can be like apples and oranges sometimes. And so I'll do my best to try to give you some tools so you can start to understand how stressful is this? Is it a good transition from the program you're on or the template you're on to go to this or not? Now, while I say that, I also want to say thank you to Evolve AI for sponsoring this series. As a team, we decided we wanted to spread the word about these programs that are out there that people know but maybe aren't that familiar with, as well as try to uncover some of the training principles underneath them and share those with you. At Evolve AI, we created an artificial intelligence system that takes the principles that undergird these systems and really creates a custom program just for you. So if you haven't checked it out, definitely do. If you're outside of those beginner gains and you're starting to stall out and you don't know where to go, Evolve AI is a great place to look. Now, let's get into the program. This is called push-pull legs. It does start with a pull-push legs process. It goes through 6 days in a week with Thursday off. That's the way it's written. You could maybe adjust the day off, but given that it's a 6-day-a-week program, you're going to be doing some workouts back to back, no matter how you slice it, and it can be pretty taxing. Now, you're going to start Monday pulling with deadlift. Tuesday is your bench focus day, but with overhead press following it up. The complementary one, overhead press, is the focus, and then bench press, but we'll get there in a minute. Wednesday, you're going to be doing squats for your leg day. Now, Friday, you're going to repeat the pulling, but you're going to be doing barbell rows instead of deadlifts. I already mentioned you're flip-flopping the focus for your upper body movement, and you're coming back and you're still hammering those squats on Sunday, everybody's favorite lift, everybody's favorite day. Now, the accessory work for these days is written down here. You do this accessory work on both days. I just wrote it at the bottom so I didn't have to write it twice. There's a lot of it here. You can see a very common protocol is this 3 sets at 8 to 12 reps. Or even some, getting those biceps. Obviously, 3 sets is not enough. You got to do 4, and you got to do 2 of them. But that's basically what's going on. It's pretty classic bodybuilding style set and rep combinations there. Now, I'll just mention it here. What weights should you be using to start with on this? Probably something you could do for 15 reps would be a good place to start. Do 3 sets of 8 to 12 with something you can do for 15 reps. Once you're hitting 12 reps on all of your sets, bump up the weight a little bit on your accessory movements. That's true for all the accessory stuff. So once you're maxing out the reps on all of your sets, chip it up a little bit. Now, for the other movements, you're going to be making progress based on the AMRAP set. So as you'll notice, our little pluses up here. What that means is, like on deadlift, you're just going to do 1 set of 5+, which is just to say 1 set of as many reps as possible. Make sure you get at least 5 with 65%. Now that's just for week 1. You start at 65% of whatever your training max is, and that's going to be probably something you can do for like 12, maybe even 15 reps, especially if you start with a training max that's already like 90% of your actual last best 1 rep max, which is advised. So you're going to be using a weight that you can do for 10 to 12 reps probably. If you get more reps than the AMRAP by like 2 or 3, you should increase the weight. Now, the recommendations that I've seen is that you don't progress all the lifts at the same rate. With deadlifts, you might increase 10 pounds if you make that AMRAP spread. But with squat, especially since you're doing AMRAPs twice a week, just increase that 5 pounds. I would advise slow the progression down a little bit because you are doing more squatting in this. You're hitting it frequently, so don't increase it all the time. For bench and overhead press, you're probably going to have to increase it a smaller amount, like 5 pounds anyways, even though you're only doing 1 AMRAP of each exercise per week, because it's smaller muscle groups. They don't grow and get as strong as fast as your lower body movements like your deadlift or your squat. So you got a 1x5 here. Other than that, it's basically 5x5s all around, except for when you're doing the main movement, those main barbell complex movements for your secondary movement on the push day, where you're going to be using that 3 sets at 8 to 12 reps. So overall, really standard, fairly high frequency 6-day-a-week program. I mean, there's plenty of programs out there where you could just remove these last 3 days, and this itself could be a whole program with this accessory work. So it's definitely a little higher on the volume. It can tax you. It can be difficult to deal with, which brings me to the next subject. This crazy chart is the sets. So basically what this means, if it's got a plus, it means you did 5 sets and one of them was an AMRAP. 1 set, one of them was an AMRAP, being that it's the only set. And then 2x3 is 6 sets for those movements, or 4x4 as you see over there. Now, I added all these up to get the total. So for squatting, you're doing 20 sets and 2 additional AMRAP sets, 22 total. For deadlift, you're doing 12 with 1 plus set, so 13 sets total, 25 and 1 plus set for bench, 26 total, 7 and 1, 43 and 1. Now the 43 is really big because I included the face pulls and the curls in the rowing volume. It's not quite the same, but that again is why these are down here on these really accessory or supplemental exercises. The main lifts is really going to be your squat and deadlift main movements. The assistance work that you see here, this is where you're doing, your leg press, your incline dumbbells, your Romanian deadlift. But lat pull downs and cable rows, those are very taxing. I mean, it's not as taxing as a barbell row that's going to have a little bit more lower back fatigue involved with it. But those are very hard exercises, especially when you compare it to like a face pull or something like that. Just not going to be as fatiguing. So what does all this mean? Well, what it means is for push, pull, and legs, you've got 32 sets plus 2 AMRAPs of pushing, pulling 43 and 1, legs 32 and 1. But what's critical to point out here is not all these sets are the same. As I've already mentioned, you got your face pulls over here compared with like a 5x5 plus AMRAP with squatting. Those are not the same amount of sets. And what I did is broke it out in between what I would call overloading, which I'm including like the heavy work here is overloading. And then this is what I'm really terming accessory. And so for push volume, you've got 22 overloading sets, pull volume, 17 overloading sets, and legs, 23 overloading sets. And so you can see you've definitely got more upper body volume in this workout. You've got plenty of accessory volume, with a lot of accessory volume coming in on those pulling movements, especially because, again, the face pulls. And what's critical to point out here is if you're on another program and you're not used to this much volume, you need to start to look at some of these breakouts to see, where am I coming from? Where am I trying to get to? Why am I adding these extra sets? And do you really want to dive all the way into a high volume program like this if you've only been doing, say, like 5-3-1, and you're doing basically a base version, not the like 5x10 afterwards, but you're almost doing like the not doing jack version of 5-3-1 where you're not doing anything afterwards. This would probably not be a great idea to just jump in on, because you're not going to be able to handle it. You're going to overload yourself with the assistance movements. You're going to be spending a lot more time in the gym that you're used to, not to mention it's just 6 days per week. So that's something to pay attention to when you're looking at moving into one of these programs, especially a power building program, which, as I've said, there's tremendous variety within power building and what that means to people when they put out a template. Look at the number of sets, look at the total workload, and try to figure, hey, am I within like 20% of the sets I'm about to do? Obviously, intensity matters here. Obviously, if you go into like a Shaco style program where the intensity is very low, yeah, it's a little bit different when you have a lot of sets at that low intensity than a lot of sets at a high intensity. This program with the AMRAPs and a number of total sets, these are hard workouts. These are taxing, but you're definitely going to start low. 65% of a training max is going to be easy to do. Your 5 sets, ramping up to your AMRAP, those are pretty easy sets. They're not going to tax you too much. So you're going to start out pretty easy, but you are going to need to deload on this eventually. To that point, when should you deload and how should you do it? Well, if you stall out on any one of these progressions, drop the weight that you're using back to 10% less. So if you stalled out on 200 pounds for your 5x5 on squats, drop it back to 180 and then just continue the cycle forward. You don't need to reset the whole cycle. You can do it piecemeal by whatever lift is stalling. But after you've done that, probably, I would say every 4 to 6 weeks, you're probably going to need to pull everything back a little bit and deload just from the overall volume. I would strongly advise pulling down the accessory work, just removing some pieces, and maybe bumping the weights down that you're doing for your overloading movements as well. Probably, 10 to 20% lower on the compound movements, and maybe taking out about half the accessory work for a deload week, and then jump right back in where you left off. In any case, that's my take on push-pull legs. I like it as a program. I think it has some good bones to it, as well as some solid accessory work. There's not too much work in any one day, and I like that it has more upper body volume than lower body volume, because in general, you can handle more upper body sets than lower body. One critique I do have, I don't think you have to do only one set of deadlift. I know there's this tremendous fear of deadlifting in a lot of these programs, but you can do more than one set. So if I was going to do anything, I might adjust the deadlift volume a little bit. I don't know about this doubling up on squats. I personally would not enjoy that, and that would trash me way more than adding some deadlift volume. But apart from that, I like it. If you've tried it, leave a comment below. Please let us know how it went. If you haven't tried it, I wish you good luck. If you got to this point in the video, take the 1 second it likes to hit the like button down below. And if you're not subscribed, come on, what are you even doing here? Subscribe to the channel for more educational content. I hope wherever you're at, you're doing well. Blessings.